Hi everyone, Gamer back with another Mission Impossible episode review. This time I'm doing Season 3, Episode 21, which is called Nitro. So we start with Jim going to some sort of dingy-looking office for instructions this time. The mission? General Zek of the country of Karak is conspiring with arms maker Izmir Najid to blow up the government house of Karak while the king is there making a speech, scuttling peace talks with their neighbors, Algiers. And the IMF must stop them. So there's a dossier scene in this one, which is kind of weird after all this time without, with the main team laid out on the table, but we also see guest agent General Tamar, who is the king's new aide. The team discusses the fact that they'll have to use the legend of Colonel Hakim, a mad bomber supposedly from the neighboring country of Algiers, who uses nitroglycerin to cause mayhem. Barney arrives at Najid's company as a systems analyst to make changes to the production schedule, as Zek and Najid discuss plans with their explosives guy, Skora. Skora tells him that he plans to set up his charges tonight in anticipation of the king's press conference in the morning, with evidence that the government of Algiers is responsible. Officers Willie and Rollin take Skora away at gunpoint when he arrives at Government House and take him to a warehouse to put him on ice as Barney's programs changes into Najid's computers. Jim and Cinnamon arrive as reporters and chat up General Tamar and the king, with Jim telling them Cinnamon is friendly with the Algerians and Colonel Hakim specifically, and is frequently seen just before Hakim has a tendency to make a strike. Willie and Rollin prepare a truck and head over to Najid's warehouse at night, with a small window of about 5 minutes for their task while the guard changes. Rollin, made up as Colonel Hakim, hops over the electrified fence and hops into a forklift, as Willie stands guard and Barney continues his work inside the office. Rollin makes it to a storage area and knocks out the guard, carefully loading up a cart with jars of nitroglycerin and putting it on the forklift. Barney's programming causes the power near the storage area to go out. But, unfortunately, the battery in the forklift is dead, forcing Rollin to spend precious minutes replacing it. The guards are alerted as the sentry near the storage area does not check in, and Rollin finally is able to get moving. The guards are unable to open the door due to the loss of power as Barney wraps up the programming. Rollin heads slowly but steadily over the speed bumps, heading back to the main gate, where Willie carefully takes the container and gets it into the truck. Rollin is barely able to get back over the fence before guards start shooting and hit the truck's brake line. Returning to the warehouse, they check to make sure Skora is still out, and Rollin fits him with a Hakim mask as Zek and Najid discuss the theft. Rollin, in the meantime, dons a Skora mask as Willie calls Cinnamon, who's being followed. Rollin, as Skora, tells Zek that because of the bedrock under Government House, he needs more time to plan. But Zek says there's no more time. It has to be done in the morning. Meanwhile, Cinnamon is found with a dead Colonel Hakim and the Nitro and the truck, which is rigged to operate by radio control. Skora realizes that Hakim's plan was to drive the truck into Government House and blow it up, and tells the general that it's a better plan than the one that he had, suggesting they put Hakim at the wheel as further proof that the Algerians are responsible. Cinnamon refuses to cooperate by telling them about the radio control, but Rollin, the Skora, reminds her that he's just doing what Hakim would have done anyway, so Cinnamon tells him where to find him. Once they do, Rollin takes Cinnamon away, claiming that he'll keep her quiet. At the press conference the next morning, Willie takes a picture with a special camera that shoots tiny shots into Najid's neck, making him weak and unable to walk properly, and Tamar takes him into his office. Rollin, as Skora, starts driving the truck towards Government House, not noticing that the brake fluid has drained. Najid sees the truck nearby as Rollin puts Skora as Hakim as in the driver's seat and heads to a nearby building, where Barney helps him take out his guard. And Rollin relays play-by-play to Zek of the truck heading towards the building, it's actually not moving at all yet, with Jim and Willie listening through earpieces. Rollin plays a tape of an explosion as Jim blows up the TV relay, making Zek proudly believe that the building has blown up and his plan has succeeded. The king stops the conference until TV service is restored, but Zek suddenly appears on the emergency broadcast system, claiming that Hakim and the Algerians have blown up Government House, as Barney starts the truck moving again, frightening Najid out of his wits as he tells Tamar the truck is full of nitro. Tamar tells soldiers to intercept the truck, as Skora and Hakim slowly starts to wake up. Najid tells the king that Zek is responsible, as Barney realizes that the brakes aren't working through the remote control, so he tries to use the gears to stop the truck, and barely manages to do so. Najid tries to plead innocence with the king, blaming Zek and Hakim, but Tamar points out that he knew about the Nitro and didn't say anything. Skora as Hakim is brought into the room, to Najid's shock. Najid obviously thought he was dead. Skora removes his mask and all of the saboteurs are taken into custody. The IMF drive away. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of D. That's pretty low for a Season 3 episode, but you might want to start getting used to the odd bad grade here and there. I'll start with a couple of the good things that keep this out of the absolute basement. And they mostly center around just basic accuracy. I mean, I really can't say anything more about that. First of all, I'll point out that, obviously they're placing this plot somewhere in the Middle East, and the Arabic, I can confirm, is basically correct. So, points for that, I guess. There's also accuracy about nitroglycerin itself. At first I thought about it and I said that maybe this is kind of a little bit of Hollywood showmanship, and the need to be so ultra careful when handling the bottles of nitroglycerin was kind of overblown. But I actually did a little bit of research to confirm that, and it turns out that no, this is actually pretty accurate. Nitroglycerin is really that unstable that if it's in a bottle or any kind of container, if it's heated or if it's jolted or anything like that, it can definitely blow up just like that. So the caution that is taken in this episode is quite accurate. What may not be totally accurate is, the amount of jostling that the bottles do take might have been enough to set it off, but, again, it's not completely overblown. The other thing where I did notice some accuracy is about the brake line. I was a little bit concerned about that because when the brake line is shot, Willie and Rollin are still able to drive the car, and they're obviously able to use the brakes because they take the truck, not really a car, the truck back to their warehouse, and then they park it near Government House. And I thought about that, and I looked into it a little bit. If somebody's actually driving the car and using a foot to put pressure on the brakes, there might be enough pressure because obviously not every bit of brake fluid is going to drain, but there'll be a little bit left. So a foot might actually be able to exert enough pressure on the brake to bring it down to a point where the brakes would work. However, a remote control, which is just going to kind of grab the brake, not put as much pressure as a foot would, might not do that. It kind of begs a question a little bit about how neither Willie nor Rollin, maybe not Willie because he was driving it earlier, but why Rollin on his way to Government House kind of didn't notice that maybe the brakes weren't working as well as they should have. I don't know. But anyway, let's move on. That's hardly the worst of it. Moving on to the bad. A couple of things I thought that were just really weird. I'll start with the weird. Iraq is obviously an Arab country. I was really wondering why their Government House would have a face on it that kind of looks like something you would see more in kind of an ancient Greece style or something like that. Like that just seems kind of weird to me. That was really odd. But again, not the worst of it. Let's move on to something that is truly bad. This is, I'm going to be very, very generous and say that this is a very below average plot. It's actually, I would say that it's bad. The villains here are completely unengaging. Put it this way. Do you actually care about these guys? Any of them? Do you care about General Zek? Do you care about Najid? Even Skora, played by Mark Leonard, is a little bit lively and is a little bit interesting in this episode. But, the villains, just like, I don't care about these guys. I really don't. Not only that, but, Skora, who is really the only competent one of the bunch, is taken out of the play way too easily. He shows up at Government House, Willie and Rollin point guns at him, and he gets back in the car, and then they just put him on ice. Like, okay, whatever. And you know, to call the villains lames or schmucks, I don't even think that comes into play. They don't even get the chance to come to that level where lameness or schmuckery even matters. I would say that they're just hapless nitwits. They are completely overmatched by the IMF. Completely. They had no chance once their guy Scora was taken out of the play. There are other problems in this episode. You can read from the Mission Impossible dossier how the director, Bruce Kessler, this is his one and only time directing an episode of Mission. He's a good director. You can look him up on IMDb. He's worked on a lot of shows and had quite a bit of success. But even he admitted that he didn't really get a good handle on what the show was about and what this episode required. And it really does come off that, you know, just the screenplay, if you want to call it that, just it's not effective. There's absolutely nothing here that makes me want to watch this episode again. And it's not that it's bad necessarily, it's just uninteresting. There's nothing there. And that's a shame, because I think there could have been something there. But there's just so much nothing there that I can't even think what could be done to make it so that there was something there. Even the nitroglycerin heist, which should have a fair bit of tension around it, even that for some reason just doesn't come off really great to me. And if you can't get that right, I mean, come on, like what else are you going to do with the rest of the episode? The last thing I'll mention is there's some horrible dubbing of lots of voices. The soldiers, for example, at Najid's company, his facility, their voices are dubbed. Towards the end, other soldiers are dubbed over by Martin Landau's voice. It's pretty obvious. They use some kind of machine to morph his voice, I guess, or something like that. I don't know why they had to do that, but they did. And again, that points to something really, really amiss with the whole production of this episode. And it really comes across. You don't have to really be an analyst or look really, really closely to really see that there is something off with this one. So I'm going to stick with my grade of D for this, and let's just move on and hope for a better one next time. That's all I can say. Anyway, that's my review of this one. Thank you all for watching. As always, please like this episode. Please leave your comments and please subscribe to my channel. I'm getting a lot more comments now, and I really, really do appreciate that. I did get a comment from one subscriber, and thank you very much for this, for asking me to speak a little bit slower and clearer, because English is obviously not everybody's native language, and I totally appreciate that. I'm going to also do some work on the subtitles as well. I know Google kind of does them automatically, and it does a fairly good job, but I'm going to take some time at some point and clean some of them up so that it'll hopefully make it easier for non-English native speakers to watch these videos. But I very, very much appreciate the attention that people are bringing to this channel. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.